I am not even sure how to define the mind, but I'm going to try. So the gross reductionist, gross materialist, scientific materialist view of the body is that it is a bunch of different moving pieces that all interrelate and cooperate for survival and reproduction. And the idea implicit in that is that these component parts can be reduced to very discrete, small, or uncomplicated or simple, maybe functions, right? Like, for example, you might think that all memory was in the brain. Tom Cowan talks about this in his book. He shares this remarkable anecdote that came out of research on psychology in people who'd had a heart transplant. What they found in patients who'd had a heart transplant, and I'll tell you a story to illustrate this. Very specific story. A white racist factory worker gets a heart transplant and all of a sudden develops a affinity, a friendliness to his black coworkers. He starts frequenting African American or African American dominated places of business, places of recreation. He starts preferring food that they prefer to eat. The book was not specific as to what that meant, by the way. And he started to listen to violin concertos. What an odd combination of behavior changes for someone who's had a heart transplant, right? And they came back to the clinic and they said, we're very perplexed by these changes. You told us there might be profound changes in his behavior and outlook on life after the transplant, but these are really bizarre. Can you explain these? And lo and behold, the gentleman whose heart he had received in the transplant had been a young African-American student who died violently and had been studying to become a professional violinist.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So if you know that, how can you possibly believe that our memories can be reduced to what's in the brain? Right? They can't be reduced to what's in the brain. There's this connection between the brain and the heart. And we know this from the electrophysiology research that when there's good coherence between the brain and the heart in terms of their electrical communication, and one of the measures for this is HRV, heart rate variability. When there's good agreement and coherence, people tend to live longer and be healthier. And as that coherence and as that connection is damaged, severed, suppressed, not given room to sort of breathe, HRV drops, generally speaking. And we use that clinically all the time. The point is simply this: the mind is not in any one part of the body. The mind is everywhere and the mind is nowhere. And trying to put it in some little box in a neuroanatomy textbook hasn't worked. Because what we found through studies of people who've had strokes and brain injuries is that there's no part of the brain that's responsible for any one discrete function of consciousness. You might have areas that are responsible for being able to speak, being able to understand what's said to you, being able to see, being able to, put a letter in a mailbox. Neuroanatomy and brain damage studies and anecdotes of patients really are remarkable for the strange things that you find when you investigate what's happened to the damaged brain. So the mind is like I said, nowhere and everywhere. And that means that any medicine that you're taking, and I mean that very broadly, meditation, herbs, supplements, light, all of it can touch the mind.